Hey guys, tonight we step back into a world both familiar and completely alien, the sprawling grasslands of the late Pleistocene. You stand beneath a pale, washed-out sky, surrounded by towering mammoths, lumbering ground sloths, and herds of distant bison that blur into the horizon like living waves. The air hums with the quiet buzz of insects and the low rumble of creatures too large for modern times. This is a land where the rules of survival are written in muscle claw and tooth, and none more so than the Sabertooth Cat. You hear it before you see it, a rustling whisper in the tall grass like silk brushing against silk. Your eyes dart toward the source, but for a moment there's nothing. Then, with the grace of a practiced hunter, it appears. The Smilodon. Stockier than a modern lion, its shoulders bulge with coiled muscle beneath golden fur, and its head looks almost too large for its body. But the real showstoppers are those fangs, two long, curved canines that dangle from its upper jaw like polished ivory daggers. You probably wouldn't survive this encounter in reality, but don't worry, tonight you're only a visitor. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with your location and local time. I always love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You keep your distance, your presence, nothing more than a phantom observer. The sabertooth scans the horizon, not with panic, but with the ease of one who knows its place near the top. The air around you feels thick, not from heat, but from history. Like the land remembers every hunt, every struggle, every quiet grooming session beneath these ancient trees. And yes, grooming. You see, these massive killers weren't always stalking pouncing beasts. Much of their lives were spent in surprisingly calm, almost domestic moments. It's a strange thought, isn't it? That the creature with some of the deadliest teeth nature ever invented might spend hours delicately licking its own fur or gently cleaning the face of a companion. The Pleistocene world is a balancing act. Gigantic herbivores roam in enormous herds, their numbers keeping predators well fed but always alert. Towering, short-faced bears, larger than grizzlies, wander nearby. And lurking in shadows, packs of dire wolves coordinate their moves like organized crime syndicates. The saber-tooth lives among these giants, but unlike the others, its power is in ambush, not endurance. Those elongated teeth, while lethal, are fragile if misused. One bad bite into bone instead of soft flesh could crack them. So instead of reckless aggression, Smilodon plays a game of patience, precision, and oddly enough, cleanliness. Scientists estimate that Smilodon weighed up to 600 pounds with thick limbs, designed not for sprinting but for wrestling prey to the ground. Think more sumo wrestler than sprinter. Its short tail betrays its hunting style. Unlike cheetahs or lions, it didn't need long tails for balance during fast chases. It needed raw strength for sudden bursts, pinning down prey before delivering a surgical kill. But let's be honest, this is not the scene you probably imagined when thinking of saber-tooths. You likely pictured constant bloody battles, snarling roars, and shredded carcasses. And sure, that happened, but honestly, most of their day was more about naps, stretching, social interaction, and crucially grooming. There's a peaceful clearing up ahead. The late afternoon sun slants through scattered clouds, casting a golden glow over a small family group of Smilodons resting together. You pause to watch. One stretches lazily, its wide paw pads flexing as claws extend and retract like polished scythes. A juvenile flops over its larger sibling, earning a gentle cuff in return. The big male's fangs catch the light briefly as he yawns, a surprisingly endearing sight, given their lethal potential. Even here in this primeval world, social bonds are currency. Grooming isn't just about staying clean, it's trust, comfort, even love in a way. You notice how one female gently licks her mate's ear, tiny barbs on her tongue methodically working through his dense fur. He purrs softly, his eyes half closed in drowsy contentment. Those giant teeth hang uselessly in these moments, like oversized ornaments. Mainstream paleontology confirms Smilodons likely lived in complex social structures, somewhat akin to modern lions. Fossil beds at places like Rancho La Brea show many individuals together, suggesting cooperative living. Yet scholars still argue whether these were true prides, loosely organized groups, or simply circumstances of mass death events. Was this cozy pile of cats a permanent family, or simply opportunistic neighbors? The debate lingers. As you stand motionless, a light breeze shifts the grasses. The air smells rich, earthy, slightly metallic, full of life. Overhead, enormous condors wheel lazily, hoping for scraps that may one day come. But for now, the Sabertooth family remains at peace. Their focus inward, not outward. A baby cub clumsily approaches its mother, attempting its first awkward grooming motions. Its tiny, still-growing canines poke out like misplaced baby teeth, giving it a comical appearance. The mother tolerates the effort, nudging the little one's head into a better angle. Practice makes perfect even in the art of licking. You realize that while fangs and muscle get all the attention, it's these quiet, methodical moments of fur maintenance that actually occupy most of their hours. Parasites are a constant threat. Debris collects in their dense coats. Without grooming, infections and irritations could spell disaster for creatures whose survival depends on peak physical condition. The shadows lengthen as the sun dips toward the horizon. Insects begin their evening symphony while the wind cools. Around you, the world of giants exhales, preparing for the night. And still, the Sabertooth family grooms. Each lick a soft, repetitive act of devotion, resilience, and quiet survival. You stay rooted in your quiet spot as the sky continues to dim, watching this oddly gentle world of killers. As night begins to press its cool hand across the land, your eyes adjust to the shifting light. The shadows of mammoths lumber past in the distance, their tusks like polished ivory scythes. But your attention remains on the saber-tooths, especially one who now rises from the pile, stretching with a luxurious arch of its back. This is your first real glimpse of Smilodon in full view, unobstructed by tall grasses or other bodies. Up close, you notice details that paintings and museum replicas never quite capture. The creature's head is massive, nearly disproportionate to its compact muscular body. Short, thick limbs anchor it low to the ground, but those paws, wide padded, armed with retractable claws, move with surprising delicacy as it steps forward. The fangs are absurd, let's be honest. Two sleek blades curving ever so slightly protrude several inches past its lower jaw. They glisten faintly under the moonlight, making you instinctively hold your breath. You wouldn't last 2 seconds against this thing in the wild. Those teeth weren't just for show, they could puncture the soft throat of a bison or young mammoth calf with surgical precision. And yet here the saber-tooth stands blinking slowly, as calm as a house cat after dinner. You can almost hear a distant narrator in your head saying, "You are now witnessing one of the most efficient predators ever to walk the earth, who also happens to enjoy spa days." The Smilodon lowers its head to its chest, and that's when you notice the real secret weapon, its tongue. Thick pink and textured like sandpaper, the tongue slides out and begins to work its way methodically through the fur. Each motion is purposeful, scraping dirt-loose hair and any unwelcome passengers off its coat. This isn't casual licking. This is maintenance. Like a soldier meticulously cleaning a weapon before battle, the sabertooth ensures its fur remains healthy, flexible, and most importantly, infection-free. Modern scientists have marveled at the sabertooth's grooming behavior by drawing comparisons to today's big cats. Tigers, lions, and leopards all rely on papillae, backward-facing spines on their tongues, to manage their coats. These tiny hooks help untangle knots, remove parasites, and spread beneficial oils across their fur. Smilodons likely possessed similar adaptations, though perhaps even more exaggerated given the challenges of their colder, rougher environment. The thick coat of Smilodon wasn't just for show. Living during the Ice Age meant enduring chilly nights and unpredictable weather. And while some depictions suggest Smilodon thrived exclusively in snow-covered tundras, fossil evidence paints a more varied picture. They roamed everything from cooler woodlands to grassy plains and even semi-arid regions. This diverse range demanded a coat that could insulate while remaining flexible, and grooming played a crucial role in maintaining that delicate balance. You glance down and notice a curious detail: small piles of shed fur scattered around the grooming spot, like tiny clouds that had lost their way. Tufts of discarded hair gently roll in the breeze. This shedding likely helped regulate temperature and rid the cats of damaged or parasite-infested fur. Once again, grooming isn't just vanity, it's survival. As you observe, you catch sight of another individual approaching. This one is smaller, a sub-adult, maybe 2 or 3 years old. Its fangs are fully grown but not quite as impressive as the dominant males. The younger cat hesitates, watching the elder groom before settling down nearby and beginning its own routine. And here's where things get even more interesting. The two begin to engage in mutual grooming, a behavior seen in modern lion prides, but rarely discussed with extinct species. The older cat turns, allowing the younger one access to its neck and shoulders. Delicate licks are exchanged each motion, reinforcing social bonds and relieving tension. Mainstream paleontologists suggest that mutual grooming in social carnivores helps lower stress levels, strengthen alliances, and even establish hierarchies. However, historians still argue whether Smilodons maintained rigid pride structures like modern lions, or looser, more flexible groupings based on food availability. Fossil clusters suggest some degree of cooperation, but whether that equates to stable families remains an open debate. You can't help but smile as you watch this ancient trust exercise unfold. Imagine if your office co-workers spend 20 minutes every morning grooming each other's hair before starting the workday. It would certainly change office politics, wouldn't it? The night deepens, and with it comes a subtle change in atmosphere. You hear distant howls, likely from a pack of dire wolves, patrolling the edges of the clearing. The Smilodons, however, remain unbothered. They've carved out their niche in this dangerous world, and right now, licking fur ranks far higher on their priority list than fighting for dominance. You spot a lone firefly blinking softly nearby, its tiny lantern swaying with the wind. Even in the ancient world, nature offers little pockets of beauty amid the brutality. As you take one last glance at the grooming pair, you feel a kind of serenity in their world. Yes, the Sabertooth Cat was a ruthless killer. Yes, it had blades for teeth and muscles like boulders. But it was also, like every creature, a participant in quiet, tender rituals that sustained its life. The fangs may define the legend, but the tongue kept them alive. The sky softens further as night fully takes hold. Stars puncture the darkness, glittering cold and sharp while a pale moon hangs above like a polished bone. You remain in your silent vantage point immersed in this quiet tableau. The predators of prehistory aren't stalking or hunting. They're curled together, breathing deeply, purring, softly lost in sleep. Before you, the Sabertooth family forms a loose pile of fur and muscle. The family nap circle. It's oddly domestic for a group of what many would consider savage beasts. But nature is full of such contradictions. Even the most lethal predators crave comfort, warmth, and the safety of the group. The big male lies at the center, his powerful body rising and falling in slow, rhythmic waves. Around him, the females and younger subadults are arranged like petals on a flower, their bodies overlapping heads, resting on each other's backs. You spot a cub, no bigger than a house cat, nestled safely between its mother's forelimbs. Its eyes flutter open for a brief moment, adjusting to the moonlight, before it drifts back into slumber. Mainstream paleontologists speculate that such sleeping arrangements offered several advantages. Warmth, for one, valuable when temperatures dipped at night, but more importantly, safety. In this land of colossal ground, sloths, giant short-faced bears, and dire wolves, numbers offered reassurance. A single Smilodon was powerful, but a group of them resting together provided a much larger, more intimidating presence to any would-be scavengers daring to approach. As you quietly watch, one of the adult females shifts, slightly raising her head to scan the horizon. The gesture is slow and deliberate. Even while resting, these creatures remain semi-alert, their instincts never fully surrendering to sleep. Her rounded ears twitch as a breeze carries distant sounds, the rustle of wind-blown grass, the soft hoot of an owl, the occasional croak of ancient frogs in a nearby marsh. She listens carefully before lowering her head again, satisfied. It's easy to forget, while watching them doze like this, that these creatures are designed for violence. Those impressive canines aren't simply decorative. They evolved for a very particular purpose, delivering fatal wounds to large prey with minimal struggle. A single well-placed bite to the throat or belly of a bison could end the hunt quickly. But such specialized teeth came with trade-offs. If they miscalculated struck bone or got tangled in thick hide, they risked snapping one of those delicate fangs. And unlike modern big cats, they couldn't afford to bite. Repeatedly, precision was everything. And yet, here they are not hunting, not fighting, but grooming, resting, and sharing body heat beneath an ice age sky. Even the deadliest predators need downtime. Scientists have uncovered fascinating quirks when studying saber-tooth fossils. Some skeletons show evidence of healed injuries, fractured limbs, punctured skulls, and even partially broken fangs. The fact that many of these animals survived such trauma suggests they received help from others in their group food sharing, perhaps even protection while healing. Historians still argue whether these acts were driven by true empathy or simple mutual benefit. Was it family devotion or survival economics? The mystery remains. A faint rustling sound catches your attention. One of the young cubs stirs restlessly and climbs over its larger siblings, its tiny claws gripping fur as it searches for a more comfortable spot. The mother tolerates the movement with patient indifference, her massive paw gently steadying the cub when it teeters too far. You realize that in many ways the saber-tooth's family structure mirrors that of modern lions, complex, layered, sometimes affectionate, sometimes brutal. The soft purring resumes a low, vibrating hum that blends beautifully with the night's other sounds. You might be surprised to learn that many paleontologists believe Smilodons likely produce low-frequency vocalizations, rather than the bone-chilling roars we associate with modern big cats. Their hyoid bone structures suggest a different kind of soundscape, one better suited to close communication within small groups, rather than broadcasting across vast territories. And while you're sitting there pondering that, let's not forget the cub's incredible future. In just a few short years, those tiny teeth will elongate into the species' iconic sabers. The process is surprisingly fast. Studies of fossilized juvenile skulls show that once their adult teeth start to grow, they erupt at an astonishing rate, almost like watching two ivory daggers slowly unfurling from a sheath. Scientists estimate that full growth of these fangs took only about 2 years, rapidly transforming playful cubs into fully equipped hunters. However, during that transitional phase, the young ones remained heavily dependent on the adults for food safety and, of course, grooming. As you continue to observe the nap circle, it strikes you that these little moments, cleaning fur, nuzzling for warmth, gently cuffing an overzealous cub, are just as critical to the species' survival as any hunt. They aren't mere luxuries, but daily maintenance routines that keep bodies healthy, relationships strong, and young ones alive. Even here in a world built on tooth and claw, tenderness has its place. The moon shifts higher overhead, casting long silver beams through the tall grasses. The wind picks up slightly, causing ripples across the plains like waves in a frozen sea. You can almost feel the ancient cold seep through your invisible form, grateful that you remain only an observer tonight. Around you, the world holds its breath, suspended between survival and serenity. And within that pause, the Sabertooth family sleeps on a living paradox of terrifying beauty and unexpected gentleness. As dawn approaches, a soft glow begins to creep over the horizon, turning the grasslands from silver to pale gold. You stay with the Sabertooth family as the world gently stirs awake. The cold breath of night retreats, and with it the creatures slowly rouse from their huddled sleep. One by one, the saber-tooths rise, stretching in slow, luxurious arcs, their powerful muscles flexing under sleek fur. The male opens his massive jaws in an exaggerated yawn, his enormous fangs glinting in the first rays of sunlight. But instead of launching into some dramatic hunt, he begins as usual with grooming. And this time, you get a closer look at the tool that makes it all possible, the tongue. Modern science has studied the tongues of big cats extensively. If you've ever had the questionable pleasure of a house cat licking your hand, you've felt the miniature version of what Sabertooth possessed, a coarse, raspy surface that feels like sandpaper. That texture comes from the papillae, backward-facing spines, made of keratin, the same tough protein found in claws and hair. In Smilodon, paleontologists believe these papillae were even more developed, proportionally larger and slightly more curved than those of modern cats. Their tongues weren't just cleaning tools. They were high-efficiency grooming machines capable of removing dirt, loose fur, and parasites lodged deep in the thick coat. Each stroke of the tongue performed multiple functions at once: exfoliating skin, redistributing natural oils, dislodging insects, and aligning fur fibers to maintain insulation. You watch as one female carefully grooms her chest, rotating her head at just the right angle, so her tongue can reach every part of her dense fur. Each movement is deliberate, almost meditative. The rough barbs scrape through tangles, pulling free tufts of loose hair that drift away on the morning breeze like little puffs of smoke. Then she moves on to grooming her shoulder, contorting her spine with feline flexibility. Her barbed tongue works methodically, leaving behind neat, orderly rows of fur that gleam softly in the sunlight. It's not just hygiene, it's craftsmanship. There's something almost soothing in the repetition of it all. Like a practiced artist or craftsman, the sabertooth works without hurry, without wasted effort. You feel your own breathing unconsciously slow as you watch your body matching the steady hypnotic rhythm of each grooming stroke. Of course, the tongue wasn't used solely for fur maintenance. Those papillae could also strip meat from bone with astonishing efficiency. After a kill, Smilodon likely employed its tongue to scrape every edible bit from a carcass, much like modern lions do. Their fragile fangs limited their ability to gnaw through tough hides or bones, so the tongue became an essential tool for maximizing nutrition from every meal. Historians still argue whether Smilodons routinely shared kills with others or defended their prizes fiercely. Fossil evidence of multiple individuals around shared kills suggests some level of cooperation, but whether this was coordinated teamwork or tolerated scavenging is still debated. Your attention shifts to a pair of juveniles who have begun grooming each other nearby. The smaller one focuses intensely on its sibling's neck, where fleas and ticks like to hide in the warm crevices behind the ears. Each careful lick serves a double purpose, cleaning and reinforcing their social bond. Scientists call this allogrooming, and it's seen in many social mammals including primates and canines. But seeing it here between saber-toothed cubs, with their comically oversized teeth in training, gives the behavior a strangely wholesome charm. Even at this early stage, the cubs instinctively understand how important grooming will be for their survival. Thick coats that trap parasites can lead to skin infections or attract the wrong kind of attention from rival predators. And out here, weakness rarely goes unnoticed for long. In the distance, a herd of giant ground sloths moves lazily through the shrubs, their shaggy bodies swaying as they search for low-hanging leaves. Occasionally, one rises up on its hind legs, towering like a furry skyscraper before resuming its plodding pace. The saber-tooths take no notice for now. The ground sloths are too large and risky to target today. Nearby, the young male subadult resumes his own grooming routine, stretching his back legs forward and using his tongue to meticulously clean the thick fur along his haunches. His short tail flicks idly with each stroke, betraying his deep concentration. You notice a small scar running along his shoulder blade, a faded reminder of some past encounter, perhaps a playful tussle gone too far, or a narrow escape from danger. Many Smilodon fossils bear similar scars, broken bones that healed puncture wounds, that closed over time testaments to both the dangers they faced and the resilience that allowed them to survive. The fact that some individuals live long enough to heal from serious injuries suggests these cats weren't entirely on their own. The support of companions may have made the difference between life and death. As the morning sun climbs higher, the saber-tooths continue their routines. Some lay back down, basking in the warmth, like oversized house cats. Others groom yawn and gently bat at one another in lazy, playful swipes. There's an odd sense of peace here, a kind of fragile balance that feels far removed from the constant life-or-death struggle you might expect in a world ruled by predators. The real danger, of course, is never far. But for now, in this moment, the saber-tooths simply exist, gentle giants with blades for teeth, quietly maintaining the bodies that allowed them to rule their world. The morning sun climbs, steadily casting longer shadows across the rolling plains as warmth seeps into the air. The sabertooths, fully awake, now shift from their leisurely grooming into playful sparring. You notice the younger members of the group becoming more animated, their energy bubbling over after a restful night. Two juveniles barely past their cub years begin circling each other. Their tails flick rhythmically, and their eyes are wide pupils dilated in that familiar playful way cats get. And then, with almost comical clumsiness, they pounce. Their thick paws thud softly against the ground as they collide, rolling together in a bundle of fur muscle and awkward baby fangs. Playfighting is a vital part of their development, just as it is for modern big cats. These mock battles prepare them for the precision and power they'll need as adults. You watch as one juvenile attempts a mock throat bite its small sabers, gently tapping its sibling's neck before pulling back. They tumble again, pause, flailing in slow motion, as they wrestle, practicing balance, coordination, and timing. Mainstream paleontologists widely agree that this type of sparring helped Smilodon cubs learn how to use their unusually long canines without injuring themselves. After all, their fangs, while deadly, were also delicate. A mistimed bite or clumsy pounce could result in a snapped tooth, a dangerous liability for any predator dependent on its mouth for survival. Scientists studying fossilized skulls of juvenile Smilodons have found fascinating evidence of this learning curve. Some skulls show subtle asymmetries in fang growth, suggesting that as their sabers developed, the young cats had to adapt their jaw mechanics and head movements to avoid damaging the fragile tips. It was as much a game of skill as of strength. You can almost imagine the internal dialogue of these young cats. Okay, big teeth go here, not there. Don't jab the sibling. Easy on the fang pressure. Their play is punctuated by little yowls, soft chirping vocalizations that modern-day cheetah cubs still make. Paleontologists believe Smilodon cubs may have sounded surprisingly similar, especially in their youth, producing high-pitched calls rather than deep roars, while adult sabertooths might have used low rumbles or closed-mouthed chuffs. To communicate, the young likely had their own noisy language of squeaks and trills. As you continue observing, one of the adults watches over the sparring match like a patient referee. She allows them their roughhousing, but steps in occasionally when the play grows too intense. A gentle swat of her paw, a low chuff from her throat, and the cubs ease back. It's in these moments you see the tender but firm parenting style that probably played a critical role in the survival of Smilodon young. Unlike many solitary carnivores, Smilodons seem to have invested significant time and energy in raising and protecting their offspring, a hypothesis supported by fossil sites like Rancho La Brea, where remains of multiple age groups have been found together. Historians still argue, of course, about how permanent these family groups were. Were they lifelong prides like modern lions, or more fluid coalitions that formed and dissolved based on food availability and reproductive needs? The evidence leans in both directions, creating a blurry picture that keeps researchers debating to this day. The young ones, meanwhile, tire of their wrestling match and flop onto their sides, panting softly. One rolls onto its back paws, curled in the air, while the other nudges its sibling's belly with its muzzle. Their tiny fangs glisten as they yawn and lick each other's faces in a quick burst of affection, before drifting into a short, midday nap. Suddenly, a sharp rustle cuts through the peaceful air. Your attention snaps toward the tall grasses to the north. The adult saber-tooths are alert now, ears perked, heads raised, nostrils flaring as they taste the wind for any sign of danger. But after a tense few moments, the threat passes. A small herd of ancient pronghorns dashes into view, their bodies bounding gracefully across the landscape. Before disappearing into the horizon, the saber-tooths relax again, returning to their calm, unhurried routines. The morning heat deepens. A few of the adults return to grooming their tongues, rasping methodically through thick fur, while others simply lounge beneath the sparse shade of stunted Ice Age trees. You notice how their grooming now focuses on areas hard to reach: the backs of the neck, behind the ears and between the shoulder blades, those tricky spots that require a little help from a friend. These quiet acts of mutual care reinforce the social bonds that hold the group together. In the harsh world of the Pleistocene, cooperation often made the difference between thriving and dying alone. A light breeze carries the scent of distant flowers and freshly trampled grass. You can almost feel the temperature on your skin, the kind of warmth that makes both predators and prey slow their movements, conserving energy during the hottest part of the day. Even in this ancient world, life isn't always a desperate struggle. Sometimes it's simply a lazy morning of family play, and the quiet rhythmic sound of a barbed tongue gliding through fur. The sun hangs lazily overhead, now casting sharp, almost white light across the open plains. The saber-tooths lie scattered beneath patches of shade, some still engaged in the careful art of grooming. You begin to notice something fascinating in their gentle exchanges, a rhythm, a silent choreography as they groom each other with deliberate care. This isn't random. This is social bonding at its most ancient and primal. One female focuses intently on the big male's cheek, working slowly along the edge of his powerful jaw. With each pass, her raspy tongue glides over his short fur, occasionally catching a loose hair or an insect attempting to hide in the dense layers. The male closes his eyes, his breathing deep and steady, completely trusting his partner's care. You're watching a form of communication older than language, one that transcends words entirely. Modern researchers have long observed similar behavior in present-day lions, cheetahs, and even domestic cats. This mutual grooming, called allogrooming, goes far beyond hygiene. It's about trust, cooperation, and establishing social bonds that can last for years. And in the dangerous world of the Pleistocene, strong bonds weren't just nice to have, they were essential. You can almost hear the unspoken dialogue. I trust you to clean the places I cannot reach. And in turn, you trust me to do the same. Mainstream paleontology suggests that Smilodon's complex grooming behavior likely played a key role in reducing social tension. Sharing food, hunting together, and caring for cubs required teamwork, and grooming provided a way to ease friction before it ever escalated into aggression. In many ways, these grooming sessions were ancient therapy appointments, reducing stress hormones and reinforcing unity. And yet, historians still argue about just how stable these groups were. Some believe Smilodons formed semi-permanent prides, while others propose that groupings were more situational, tied to abundant prey or environmental pressures. The fossils offer tantalizing clues, but not definitive answers, ensuring that debates continue around every academic table. A sudden playful yowl draws your attention to a pair of juveniles, mimicking the adult's grooming habits. With exaggerated effort, one cub licks the other's head, pausing every few strokes to swat clumsily with its oversized paw. The recipient tolerates the sloppy attention for a while, before rolling onto its side in mock irritation. Their fangs, still growing, give them both a slightly comical appearance, like toddlers playing dress-up with swords they haven't quite mastered. Beyond the circle of fur and sun-dappled shadows, you catch sight of movement at the edge of the clearing. A pair of dire wolves prowl cautiously in the distance. Their lean frames and narrow snouts seem almost fragile compared to the stocky saber-tooths. Yet these wolves are no small threat. Operating in large, highly coordinated packs, dire wolves could challenge even the mighty Smilodon under the right conditions. But today, the wolves keep their distance. The Sabertooth's numbers and their unity are enough of a deterrent. No one wants to test a tightly bonded group that can defend itself with fangclaw and sheer intimidation. The male, having finished his grooming, rises and stretches his shoulder blades, rippling beneath his thick fur. You watch as he moves closer to one of the females, nudging her gently with his broad head. She responds with a slow blink and a few affectionate licks to his muzzle, another quiet reaffirmation of trust. There's something deeply soothing about watching creatures so often portrayed as savage monsters reveal this tender, almost domestic side. You're witnessing not only survival strategies, but genuine emotional connections, a reminder that life, even in its harshest forms, often thrives on cooperation as much as competition. Nearby, a smaller female settles down to groom her own chest, curling her body like a crescent moon. Her tongue, with its tiny keratin hooks, works methodically, scraping through her undercoat. Loose fur drifts up in the breeze, catching the light as it swirls gently before settling onto the grass. You realize just how vital this practice is. Without consistent grooming mats, entangles could form, creating vulnerable pockets for parasites to breed. Left unchecked, these infestations could lead to skin infections, open sores, or even attract biting insects that spread diseases. In the ancient world, such weaknesses often prove fatal. And yet, grooming does more than protect the skin, it also helps regulate temperature. Smilodon's dense fur acted as insulation during the cooler nights and early mornings. But as midday heat sets in, properly aligned fur allows airflow to cool the skin, preventing overheating, a biological air conditioner maintained by the tongue. A soft wind sweeps across the open plain, rustling the grass like waves. The distant call of a giant vulture echoes overhead, its massive wings gliding effortlessly on thermal updrafts. You can feel the subtle temperature shifts in the air, the scent of dry grasses mixed with the musk of nearby herds. One of the cubs, now fully awake again, scampers awkwardly toward the adults, seeking attention. The mother leans down, greeting her offspring with a few quick licks to the forehead, smoothing back the fuzz between its ears. This simple gesture conveys safety reassurance and an unspoken promise. You're safe here. You belong. These small moments of care, repeated daily, strengthen the invisible threads that hold the group together. And in a world full of danger, lurking predators, unpredictable weather, and scarce resources, those threads can mean everything. As the day stretches forward, you remain quietly present, savoring the unhurried rhythm of a saber-tooth morning. Despite their reputation as fearsome killers, these creatures reveal something surprisingly familiar, a craving for connection, routine, and gentle touch. The afternoon light begins to tilt, softening once more into the long amber tones that signal evening's approach. But as peaceful as this corner of the Pleistocene seems, you know better than to assume serenity lasts forever out here. The Sabertooth family's gentle grooming rituals and play fights are just one part of their existence. Danger always lurks nearby. From your vantage point, you notice a disturbance in the tall grasses some distance away. It's subtle at first, a faint ripple, like a hand brushing against long curtains. Then you spot them. Low to the ground, moving with calculated precision, a small band of dire wolves creeps closer. Their amber eyes gleam their sleek bodies, shifting fluidly through the cover, sniffing the air as they attempt to evaluate whether this saber-tooth group might be vulnerable. The adult saber-tooths don't move right away. They've faced such threats many times before. You can feel the sudden shift in atmosphere, though tense, electric. The males rise first, shoulders, rolling jaws, flexing as if reminding themselves that their tools of survival remain sharp and ready. The massive fangs, which just moments ago looked almost ornamental during grooming, now glisten as weapons once again. But make no mistake, these aren't animals that leap into battle needlessly. Despite their incredible strength, Smilodons were not built for prolonged chases or skirmishes with rival predators. Their limbs, though thick and powerful, weren't designed for endurance. They were optimized for explosive ambushes. The risk of injury in an unnecessary confrontation is too great. A single cracked fang or torn muscle could mean starvation later. Mainstream paleontology teaches us that Ice Age predator hierarchies were fluid, dynamic, and full of calculated decisions like this. Who backs down? Who presses forward? Historians still argue whether saber-tooths had frequent deadly clashes with rivals or mostly relied on intimidation and group strength to discourage conflict. The dire wolves pause at the edge of the clearing. They're calculating, weighing their odds. This saber-tooth group appears healthy, strong, united, not the easy target they might have hoped for. The wolves sniff the air once more, exchanging glances before finally slipping back into the tall grass like ghosts. The standoff dissolves before blood is ever drawn. As the tension ebbs, the saber-tooths settle once more, and here's where the fascinating rhythm of their lives reveals itself again. After such brief confrontations, or moments of elevated stress, grooming resumes almost immediately. It's as if the act itself helps dissipate leftover anxiety. You watch one of the females turn her attention to the youngest cub, licking its head and neck with long, deliberate strokes. The barbed tongue glides gently over the fur, realigning the tiny hairs, while calming the little one's nerves. The cub presses its head against her chest, eyes fluttering closed as its breathing slows again. There's something almost therapeutic about this, an ancient form of mindfulness, long before humans ever coined the term. You might chuckle quietly at the thought even in the Ice Age. Self-care was essential. Further evidence for these behaviors comes not only from fossil remains but from studying modern social carnivores. Lions, wolves, and even primates engage in similar post-conflict grooming sessions to rebuild trust and stabilize group cohesion. It seems nature understood long ago that comfort and connection often follow moments of stress. As your gaze shifts, you spot another adult licking along the male's massive foreleg, cleaning dried bits of dirt and small abrasions from the morning's roughhousing. These tender acts are maintenance, yes, but also quiet reassurances. You're still part of us. We're still whole. The landscape itself seems to sigh in relief. A flock of ancient cranes lifts off from a nearby watering hole, their wings casting long, elegant shadows across the golden plain. You can feel the shift in temperature as the heat of day begins to break, replaced by cool evening breezes that brush against your invisible skin. The entire ecosystem operates on this intricate balance. Each player, predator, prey, scavenger knows its role, yet none are guaranteed safety. The saber-tooths thrive not through reckless violence, but through calculated caution, cooperation, and a surprising dose of tenderness. You spot a few tiny shapes darting through the tall grass nearby, ancient relatives of modern rodents skittering between burrows. These tiny creatures, often forgotten in grand Ice Age tales, remind you that the ecosystem doesn't just belong to the giants. Even here, beneath the feet of towering mammoths and saber-toothed killers, small lives are being lived in quiet desperation. One of the juveniles notices the movement and instinctively crouches, eyes locked, tail flicking. It's not a serious hunt, just youthful curiosity, but it reveals how deeply the predatory instincts are wired into their young bodies. The mother glances over, allows the cub a few cautious pounces, and then gently calls it back with a soft grunt. And once more, the cycle returns to grooming. Lick by lick, they restore order to their coats, bond with one another, and reaffirm their fragile hold on life in a world of constant uncertainty. You sit quietly, letting the hypnotic rhythm of these ancient creatures work its spell. The barbed tongues scrape the purrs, rumble softly, and the wind carries the scent of wildflowers blooming somewhere far across the plain. Even danger, though always present, cannot drown out the peaceful rituals that fill their daily lives. The sun dips lower now, casting the clearing in soft gold and long stretching shadows. The temperature cools, but the saber-tooths are far from done with their rituals. As evening arrives, one of the most fascinating aspects of their daily routine begins the mother's patient instruction. You focus your attention on one mother and her two cubs, both still awkward with their fangs, growing in not yet confident in their own bodies. The mother lies down and invites her cubs close. With a low, breathy grunt, they pat over eagerly their little tails, flicking in unison, eager for the next lesson. You might expect hunting lessons at this point, pouncing practice, or stalking drills, but no. Tonight, she is teaching the fine art of grooming. With great patience, she demonstrates proper technique. Her tongue, covered with rows of keratin barbs, works carefully through her own fur first. The cubs watch intently, their round eyes following every motion. She pauses, then shifts her position slightly to allow the cubs access to parts of her fur they can safely practice on. One cub leans forward and tentatively flicks its tiny tongue against her shoulder. The motion is clumsy, the tongue more of a dab than a proper stroke. But it's a start. The mother waits, barely moving, allowing the little one to repeat the action. With each attempt, the cub's strokes grow longer, more confident, more precise. The other cub soon joins in, mimicking its sibling with comical seriousness. You can almost imagine a parental voice whispering, "Gentle now, not too hard, don't pull the fur." Mainstream paleontology acknowledges how important these learning periods must have been. For Smilodon, grooming wasn't simply instinct, it was a skill. The delicate balance required to clean thick fur without damaging skin, to remove parasites while avoiding injury, and to keep those oversized teeth from accidentally harming a partner required practice. And the sooner the cubs learned, the better their odds of survival. Historians still debate how much of this behavior was hardwired and how much was taught. Was it purely instinctual, embedded deep within their DNA, or did older saber-tooths actively mentor their young as this mother seems to be doing? The fossil record offers limited answers, but scenes like this suggest a complex social intelligence at work. The patience of the mother is astonishing. She allows her cubs to clumsily lick her ear, to nibble gently at her neck, even to paw at her fur when they lose balance. Each moment is a small step toward mastery. And while you can see the imperfections, she seems content, simply to let them learn. Nearby, one of the older juveniles observes the lesson, licking its own foreleg as if practicing in solidarity. Even the slightly older saber-tooths still refine their grooming skills well into adolescence, with their sabers continuing to grow and their adult fur thickening. Their bodies demand constant care and ever more precise control over their grooming technique. The males, too, remain involved in this quiet education. You watch as the big male shifts closer, lowering his head toward one of the cubs. With surprising gentleness for such a fearsome creature, he allows the tiny mouth to explore his massive jaw, gently nuzzling the cub in return. It's easy to forget, while looking at these scenes, that this male could crush bone with a single swipe of his paws. Yet, here he is, playing patient mentor to his offspring. The larger sabers of the adults remain ever-present, gleaming like pale scimitars even in these tender moments. But the cats move with practiced care, adjusting head angles and jaw positions to ensure the sabers remain safely out of the way during grooming. One careless move could lead to accidental injury. Another reason these lessons start young. You begin to realize that grooming served not only as hygiene and bonding, but also as fang management training. Learning to live with these enormous teeth required constant awareness of their limitations. The sabers were tools of precision, not brute force, elegant scalpels rather than crude daggers. The evening air grows cooler, scented with distant rain carried on the wind. Far off, the low rumble of thunder echoes not close enough to alarm the group but enough to trigger a slight shift in behavior. The adults glance up briefly, noses testing the moisture in the air, ears swiveling like radar dishes. The mother finishes the training session by giving both cubs a thorough cleaning herself, restoring order to their somewhat tousled fur. The cubs purr softly under her touch, curling into her belly afterward, exhausted but content. She wraps her forelimb around them, her head resting protectively above their small bodies. Nearby, the rest of the group begins their own preparations for the coming night. Pairs of adults groom one another one last time, focusing on hard-to-reach areas before settling in for sleep. You notice how carefully each pair works around the base of the neck, a vital spot that's nearly impossible for any individual to reach alone. Even among killers, partnership proves essential. As twilight deepens, fireflies blink softly through the grasses, tiny floating lanterns that seem to bless the scene. With their quiet flicker, the Sabertooth family, clean, connected and calm, slowly curls back into their nap circle beneath the stars. The storm remains distant for now, but the world prepares for another night of uncertainty, as it always must in this ancient wild place. The storm that rumbled on the horizon earlier has now arrived. Soft raindrops begin to patter against the dry grass, darkening the soil and bringing out the scent of earth rich, musky, and alive. You remain still watching as the sabertooths adapt effortlessly to the change in weather, slipping into one of the more overlooked but equally fascinating parts of their grooming routine, parasite battles. With the humidity rising, the hidden residents within their thick fur flea sticks, and mites grow more active. But the sabertooths are ready for this. The adults rouse from their resting spots and begin grooming with fresh determination, focusing on the warm, vulnerable areas, most attractive to these tiny invaders behind the ears, under the chin, along the haunches. Parasites, as small and insignificant as they seem, were a serious threat to Ice Age predators. Infestations could sap energy, cause skin infections, or even transmit deadly diseases. Left unchecked, they could weaken an animal enough to make it fall behind its group or fail in a critical hunt. And so the daily ritual of grooming, wasn't just about looking neat, it was a full-scale war against these invisible enemies. You watch one female use her rasping tongue like a tiny barbed broom, sweeping through the fur with short, careful strokes. The rain adds a slick sheen to her coat, making it easier to catch the parasites clinging near the surface. Tiny ticks dislodged from their hiding spots are flicked away or crushed between the teeth with expert precision. Paleontologists studying modern feline grooming behaviors note that even today's house cats perform nearly identical movements. The backward-facing papillae on their tongues act like flexible combs, pulling out parasites lodged deep in the fur while redistributing natural oils that serve as a mild insect deterrent. In Smilodon, whose dense fur offered both warmth and a tempting habitat for bugs, this function was absolutely essential. Historians still debate how seasonal changes may have influenced parasite loads. Did wet seasons bring waves of fleas and ticks that forced sabertooths to groom more aggressively? Or did colder winters reduce the insect threat, allowing temporary reprieves? The fossil record doesn't preserve fleas or mites, leaving much of this question to modern inference. But the patterns seen in today's big cats offer strong clues. Nearby, the young cubs continue their clumsy grooming practice, occasionally pausing to scratch at their necks with oversized paws. Their sharp little claws rake through their fur in quick bursts, mimicking their mother's more refined technique. One cub topples over mid-scratch, letting out a startled chirp before regaining its balance and resuming its efforts, clearly annoyed at both the parasites and its own coordination. You chuckle quietly. Even in an ancient world full of towering predators, some things remain universal: the irritation of a stubborn itch and the awkwardness of youth. The rain intensifies briefly, causing the entire group to shift closer under a dense clump of trees for shelter. The leaves create a patchy canopy that offers modest protection, while the moisture continues to drip and collect on their fur. Strangely, the rain aids the grooming process as well, loosening dried mud, washing away loose hairs, and driving out reluctant parasites clinging to damp fur. One of the sub-adult males stretches out a foreleg and carefully inspects the space between his toes, another favorite hiding place for mites. His tongue works between the pads, ensuring no hidden invaders remain. It's tedious, repetitive work, but one that means the difference between comfort and misery. You notice too how the grooming extends beyond their own bodies. As the rain lightens again, pairs of adults resume mutual grooming, focusing on those hard-to-reach areas where parasites like to hide the nape. The shoulder blades, the backs of the thighs. Each careful lick strengthens the bonds between them, transforming what could be a simple hygiene task into a social exchange. This cooperative grooming likely played an important role in maintaining group harmony. When tempers flared or tensions rose, whether over food mating or space grooming provided a calming reset button. Modern primates exhibit similar behavior using grooming, not just to clean but to negotiate peace. It's a universal language of touch that spans species and millions of years. Mainstream science recognizes this as more than mere biology. Grooming is a survival tool that operates on multiple levels: physical, emotional, and social. And in animals like Smilodon, whose survival depended on group cohesion as much as on individual strength, these routines were critical. The rain begins to taper off now, leaving behind a world scrubbed clean. Puddles reflect the dim evening light and the scent of wet vegetation fills the air. The sabertooths shake themselves off, sending little showers of droplets flying. Their coats, now groomed to near perfection, glisten in the fading light. A cool breeze ripples across the clearing, and you see one of the males lower his head to nuzzle a female softly along her jaw. She responds with slow, affectionate licks along his muzzle, as if sealing the unspoken promise that together they remain stronger, healthier, and more prepared for whatever tomorrow might bring. You exhale slowly, feeling yourself sink even deeper into the rhythm of this world. The barbed tongues continue their work. The parasites are driven out once more, and the fragile balance between life and death is held for another day. The storm has passed completely now, leaving behind a glistening world of deep greens, fresh scents, and calm air. As you sit quietly watching the saber-tooths continue their rituals, you begin to notice something even more subtle, something invisible yet absolutely essential to their communication scent. It turns out that grooming isn't just about cleaning fur or removing parasites. It's also about spreading scent, tiny chemical messages carried in the saliva and spread carefully across the fur. With each lick, a saber-tooth leaves behind traces of itself on its companions, essentially branding them with its personal biological signature. The young male you've been following moves to his mother's side, again rubbing his broad head along her neck. She responds with a few slow licks, not only smoothing his fur, but also spreading her scent onto him, reaffirming in a way his place within the group. You can almost hear the silent dialogue. You belong, you are mine, we are one. Mainstream paleontology supports this behavior by drawing parallels with modern big cats. Lions, for instance, frequently engage in head-rubbing and mutual grooming as a way to exchange scents and maintain group identity. Saber-tooths, while long extinct, likely operated under similar social rules. In fact, their grooming rituals may have doubled as a kind of group passport system, constantly updating and reinforcing their shared scent profile. But historians still argue whether these scent markers played a territorial role, like modern lions, scent-marked boundaries, or served primarily for internal group cohesion. The lack of direct fossilized scent glands leaves much of this to inference. But many agree that grooming-based scent transfer was probably crucial for maintaining order and familiarity within the group. You watch now as the big male rises to his full height and begins his own scent-spreading behavior. He lowers his head and rubs his cheek against several nearby tree trunks and low shrubs, dragging his facial glands along the rough bark. This behavior, still seen in modern felines, allows him to mark his home range without risking a loud vocal challenge that might attract unnecessary danger. The subtlety of these exchanges fascinates you. No roars, no fights, no dramatic displays, just gentle licks, head rubs, and carefully placed scent marks. It's a communication system built almost entirely on trust and proximity, perfectly suited to an environment where visibility often shifts with every breeze and patch of grass. As evening deepens, the saber-tooths continue grooming one another in smaller clusters. One female focuses on the base of her companion's neck, paying special attention to any small cuts or scrapes that might have opened during earlier roughhousing. The tongue's papillae not only clean the wound but also deliver antimicrobial enzymes found in saliva, nature's first aid kit. This ancient medical care may have helped explain why so many fossilized Smilodons show evidence of healed injuries. While we might assume their dangerous lifestyle led to early deaths, the surprising number of recovered wounds suggests that those who were injured often had companions helping them survive long enough to heal. A few careful licks could make the difference between life and infection. Meanwhile, the cubs are back at their lessons, practicing their awkward grooming motions under the watchful eye of their mother. Their little tongues flick out, not yet as strong or efficient as the adults, but improving with each session. You notice how one cub pauses frequently, sticking out its growing sabers for balance, then carefully resuming its task without poking its partner. Learning to navigate those fangs while grooming must have taken considerable practice. Imagine trying to wash your face every day while holding two large knives in your mouth, and you'll get some idea of the daily challenge these young Smilodons faced. The group remains alert to the changing environment as well. A pair of giant vultures circles lazily overhead, eyeing the saber-tooths warily from a safe distance. Further out, a herd of ancient bison moves cautiously through the grasslands, their massive shaggy forms swaying rhythmically with every step. The balance between hunter and prey continues its delicate dance, even as the saber-tooths focus on the quieter tasks of hygiene and bonding. You begin to appreciate just how much of a saber-tooth's life wasn't spent in the dramatic, bloody hunts that fill so many books and documentaries. Most of their time was devoted to what you're seeing now, the repetitive, almost meditative work of maintaining their bodies, managing their relationships, and fine-tuning their enormous teeth and thick fur for the next challenge nature throws at them. The soft breeze shifts again, bringing with it the rich smells of damp earth, blooming wildflowers, and the distant hint of mammoth dung. You chuckle to yourself. Even in an ancient world, some scents remain universally pungent. Night approaches, slowly draping the plains in a cool, velvety blue. Crickets begin their evening songs, joined by the low hoots of Ice Age owls, perched in the sparse trees nearby. The saber-tooths settle once again into their familiar circle heads, resting against flanks, tails tucked, bodies pressed close for warmth. Before fully surrendering to sleep, a few final grooming strokes pass between them like whispered goodnights exchanged by old friends. Lick by lick, they seal the day's labors with quiet reassurance. And once again, you feel the calm rhythm of this ancient family washing over you, soothing, steady, and oddly familiar. The stars are scattered thick across the sky, now brilliant against the black canvas of night. The moon casts a gentle silver glow across the clearing where the saber-tooth family sleeps. But even in sleep, survival requires maintenance. And tonight, you witness one of the most remarkable parts of their care routine, fang maintenance. You might think that such enormous teeth would need no upkeep after all their weapons. But for the saber-tooth, those elongated canines were delicate instruments. A chipped fang could be catastrophic. And so, just like their fur and claws, the fangs themselves required daily care. One of the adult males stirs first, rising slowly and arching his stick back into a long, satisfying stretch. He opens his powerful jaws in a yawn that seems to go on forever, displaying the full length of those ivory sabers. Then, almost immediately, he begins working his jaw in small, deliberate side-to-side motions, a kind of self-check, almost like someone flexing their joints first thing in the morning. Paleontologists have long puzzled over how Smilodon managed such delicate teeth in a rough and tumble world. Unlike the conical teeth of lions or tigers that could withstand high bite forces and resist chipping, Smilodon sabers were surprisingly fragile. They evolved for surgical strikes, slipping between ribs or slicing through the vulnerable throat, but required careful handling to avoid accidental damage. As the male finishes his jaw, Stretches, he lowers his head and gently rubs his cheeks against a nearby sapling. This serves two purposes: scent marking, of course, but also cleaning the area around the gums where bits of food or debris might gather. Modern big cats perform similar behavior, rubbing against rough bark to dislodge irritants and maintain oral health. Nearby, one of the females lifts a foreleg and uses her paw to gently scratch along her muscle, dislodging anything caught around her sabers. Then she begins grooming herself, starting with her chin. Her rough tongue flicks upward, catching tiny food particles or parasites clinging near the tooth base. Historians still argue whether Smilodon's jaws had the range of motion necessary to self-clean their full fang length or whether much of their maintenance was assisted through mutual grooming. Watching the group now, it seems likely that both played a role. You see this hypothesis play out in real time. One of the younger subadults approaches an older sibling, nudging their head gently before beginning a careful grooming session. The younger cat focuses on the corners of the mouth and along the lower portions of the saber's areas, difficult for the individual to reach alone. The licking is slow, delicate, deliberate. Each stroke of the barbed tongue catches microscopic debris lodged near the gum line. This isn't just an affectionate act. It's vital dental maintenance. Without it, decay or infection could easily set in. Scientists examining fossilized saber-tooth skulls have noted surprisingly clean surfaces on many specimens, suggesting that regular grooming may have played a larger role in dental health than previously thought. Unlike humans who need dentists and toothbrushes, these ancient predators had one another. The cubs, naturally, are still learning this art. You watch as one of the little ones tentatively tries to groom its siblings' developing fangs. The motion is a bit too enthusiastic, causing the recipient to flinch slightly and bat away the eager helper. There's a fine balance between helpful grooming and uncomfortable scraping, one the youngsters must perfect over time. It's easy to forget how much coordination these grooming rituals require. The sabers, while iconic, turn even the simplest movements into complex calculations of head tilt, tongue angle, and pressure control. A single misjudged lick could easily jab a sibling in the eye or scrape tender gum tissue. Imagine trying to floss your teeth while holding two long knives in your mouth. That's essentially the daily challenge these cats faced. As the night wears on, more grooming pairs emerge in the moonlight. The soft, rasping sounds of tongues working through fur and across jaws blend with the chorus of insects and distant howls of creatures prowling beyond the clearing. Even in the stillness, life continues moving forward, slow, rhythmic, deliberate. You notice the adults occasionally performing another odd motion, gentle jaw, chattering where they rapidly open and close their mouths without fully biting. Some researchers believe this could have served to test jaw alignment or simply exercise the jaw muscles after long periods of inactivity. With such specialized dentition, even minor misalignments could become dangerous during a hunt. The breeze picks up slightly, rustling the leaves above. You smell the clean, rain-washed air mixed with faint traces of animal musk, wildflowers, and distant wet soil. The sabertooths seem at peace again, their bodies gleaming softly under the moonlight, their fangs perfectly polished, and ready for whatever challenges the coming days may bring. In this delicate nightly ritual, you glimpse the constant care that allowed these fearsome predators to thrive for millennia. The fangs may have been their most famous weapon, but behind each glistening blade was a lifetime of quiet, careful maintenance and the gentle cooperation of their companions. Morning returns once more to the ancient grasslands. The rain-washed world is fresh again, glistening under the soft amber rays of dawn. But instead of leaping into a hunt or grooming immediately, the sabertooths greet the day with something entirely unexpected: mud baths. You wouldn't think it at first glance. Enormous predators, their sabers like ivory scythes, wallowing in muck like oversized pigs. Yet here they are, indulging in what can only be described as nature's spa treatment. One by one, several adults saunter toward a shallow depression where rainwater has pooled, creating a wide muddy basin. The ground squelches beneath their heavy paws as they test the soft earth. Then, with surprising grace for animals of their size, they lower themselves into the muck, rolling their thick shoulders and backs into the cool, wet clay. Paleontologists theorized that mud bathing served multiple purposes for animals like Smilodon. Not only did it help regulate body temperature during warmer stretches of the Ice Age, but it also offered another tool in their constant war against parasites. The mud suffocated mites and ticks buried deep within the fur, while also providing a temporary barrier against biting insects. You watch as one female stretches out fully in the mud, using her hind leg to scratch at her shoulder as she works the soothing paste into her fur. Her wide paws press into the soft earth, and her breathing slows to a near meditative rhythm. The cubs, of course, treat the mud pit as more of a playground. They prance awkwardly, slipping and sliding their undersized sabers, occasionally catching on clumps of grass. The mud splatters into the air as they tumble and wrestle, covering their coats in thick, wet coats of clay. Occasionally, one skids too far and ends up nose first in the muck, only to bounce back up with an almost comedic shake of its head. Their mother watches but allows the antics to continue, recognizing that even play like this serves an important function. The cubs are learning how to balance, adjust their movements, and navigate uneven ground, all vital skills when hunting across the diverse, unpredictable landscapes of the Pleistocene. Mainstream paleontology supports the role of mud baths in maintaining goat health for large Ice Age mammals. Mastodons, giant sloths, and woolly rhinoceroses likely indulged in similar behavior. And while most depictions of sabertooths focus on their iconic fangs, the reality of their daily lives included plenty of these unglamorous yet essential hygiene routines. Historians still argue whether such behaviors were purely instinctual or if they may have been learned and taught across generations. Some suggest that observing older group members engaging in mud wallowing might have encouraged younger sabertooths to mimic the behavior, a kind of prehistoric mentorship, less about words and more about example. After a time, the adults begin rising from the mud one by one. Their coats now wear thick, uneven layers of gray-brown clay that will eventually dry and flake off, taking parasites and dead skin along with it. They shake themselves off with powerful rippling movements, sending small clouds of muddy droplets flying into the air. You notice one male using a nearby low branch to assist his grooming post-mud bath. He rubs his thick neck and shoulder against the bark, scraping away the drying clumps of dirt, much like a giant using nature's own loofah. The rough surface of the tree helps break apart the crusted patches, freeing up his fur beneath. Following suit, a female carefully grooms her mate's face, targeting areas he cannot easily reach himself, around the sabers beneath the jawline behind the ears. The barbed tongue slides over the muddied fur each stroke, removing another layer of grime. Once again, grooming becomes more than just cleaning. It's a reaffirmation of trust. The cubs begin their own cleanup attempts, though their efforts are far less efficient. Their small tongues and shorter reach make for clumsy work, and several give up entirely, choosing instead to flop beside their mother, content to let her do the heavy lifting later. She obliges, starting with their heads, grooming gently but thoroughly. As the sun rises higher, drying the landscape, you notice how even the dried remnants of mud continue to serve a function. Fine dust helps reflect some of the sun's harshest rays, offering a brief reprieve from overheating. In a world without shade trees or air conditioning, every small adaptation mattered. In the distance, a herd of mammoths lumbers past their thick, shaggy coats, still damp from the morning storm. The sabertooths watch them with idle interest, but make no move today. The hunt can wait. The mammoths are simply too large, too well defended, and too much trouble for now. The sabertooths have more immediate tasks: grooming, resting, and conserving energy. The wind shifts, carrying with it the familiar smells of wildflowers, wet grasses, and distant herds. The group of sabertooths, now fully cleaned, returns once more to their shaded napping grounds. The adults settle into their familiar circular rest pattern, while the cubs, finally spent from their muddy escapades, curl up tightly against their mother's warm belly. You marvel again at how much of their lives revolve around these moments of maintenance and connection. For creatures often remembered solely for their ferocity, it's these tender, practical rituals that truly sustain them. The world for now grows quiet once more. The rhythmic rasp of tongues against fur continues like a soft, steady heartbeat beneath the grand ancient sky. The afternoon light bathes the clearing in a rich amber glow as the sabertooths settle again into their gentle rhythm. But this time something different happens. Something subtle yet deeply telling about their social lives. You notice individuals grooming each other who aren't directly related, older juveniles tending to adults, unrelated females sharing grooming duties, even males carefully cleaning one another's difficult-to-reach spots. In modern big cat societies, grooming often occurs mostly within family groups. But what you're witnessing here suggests something more fluid, more flexible. These sabertooths aren't just tolerating one another, they're engaging in a sophisticated form of social maintenance that extends beyond bloodlines. Mainstream paleontology increasingly leans toward the idea that Smilodon may have lived in complex social networks, somewhat like lions but with their own unique structure. The fossil beds at Rancho La Brea in California, where many Smilodon skeletons have been found clustered together, hint at long-term group living. Injured individuals, healed cubs, grew into adulthood, and adults aged together, signs that these weren't just brief opportunistic gatherings but sustained social bonds. Historians still argue whether these were true prides like those of African lions or looser cooperative networks shaped by environmental pressures. Some suggest that abundant prey at kill sites like La Brea simply attracted many individuals to the same spot, while others believe these fossils reflect actual group living. The debate remains lively. You return your attention to the group before you. Two females sit side by side, carefully grooming the back of each other's necks with practiced ease. Each careful stroke of the tongue removes not only dirt and parasites, but spreads familiar scent markers across their coats. A chemical signature of belonging. The cubs play nearby, but even they occasionally pause to lick at one another, mimicking the social behavior of their elders. One cub, slightly older and steadier on its feet, gently licks its smaller sibling's head in an almost comically serious display of care. The younger one responds with a purr-like hum and leans into the attention. It strikes you again how critical these grooming bonds are for survival. By reinforcing relationships across the group, the saber-tooths reduce tensions, strengthen alliances, and provide emotional stability within a world where danger lurks around every corner. Nearby, a subadult male carefully grooms one of the senior males, a behavior that speaks volumes. In many species, adult males are rivals, competing for mates and dominance. But here, at least for now, there's cooperation. Perhaps this subadult is a future contender practicing the art of alliance building, long before serious challenges arise. Or perhaps this male learned that a clean ally is a loyal one. It's not hard to imagine that grooming served as a kind of political currency in these ancient societies. Like primates exchanging grooming for favors or access to food, these saber-tooths may have used their tongues not only for cleanliness, but for building coalitions that could last through hard times. The surrounding world remains ever-present. In the distance, you spot a family of giant ground sloths lazily foraging along the tree line. Overhead, great condors wheel on thermal updrafts, their white wings casting long shadows over the grass. The saber-tooths occasionally glance at these distant figures but remain focused on their grooming rituals. As the group continues its careful attention to one another, you notice another small but vital detail. Grooming allows the saber-tooths to monitor each other's health. As tongues glide over muscles and joints, they encounter scars, scrapes, bumps, and swellings. These intimate inspections serve as early warnings for injuries or infection that might otherwise go unnoticed. Scientists studying modern lions have documented similar behaviors. Injuries are quickly identified and sometimes even preferentially groomed, allowing the social group to prioritize care for weaker members. It's not sentimentality, it's strategy. A weakened member affects the group's hunting success, safety, and reproductive chances. The sooner issues are spotted, the better the chance for recovery. And while it may sound romantic, survival in the Ice Age was never sentimental. These routines evolved not because saber-tooths were kind, but because cooperation worked. The light shifts again as afternoon leans toward evening. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the tall grasses and carrying scents from far-off prey herds, migrating toward fresher grazing lands. The saber-tooths flick their ears, noting these signals, but show no urgency to hunt just yet. The day's priorities remain centered around maintenance and bonding. You feel the rhythm settle into you once more. The rasp of tongues against fur. The occasional playful swat between cubs. The heavy exhale of resting adults. The wind's soft hum through ancient trees. In a world famous for its brutality, you witness the far quieter secret that made saber-tooths so successful for so long: connection, not just to their prey or territory, but to one another. These bonds, reaffirmed through thousands of gentle licks, gave them strength no fang alone could provide. Evening edges closer, pulling a thin violet veil across the sky. The air cools, and the soft chirr of insects rises in the background. The saber-tooths, freshly groomed and rested, shift into a different kind of ritual, now one that blends instinct, strategy, and emotion. It's a quiet preparation for the night's hunt. But before any stalking or chasing begins, there is one more surprising step: stress grooming. You might imagine that predators like these leap into hunts with pure focused nerves of steel. But even in these masters of the Pleistocene, hunting carried enormous risks, and with risk comes tension. Before any major exertion, the saber-tooths engage in another round of calm, deliberate grooming. not unlike an athlete performing a pre-game routine to center themselves. You watch as one female approaches the let male, pressing her head beneath his chin in a familiar gesture. He responds, not with aggression, but with a slow, steady lick along her forehead, as if to say, steady now, we'll do this together. Mainstream paleontology suggests that stress grooming may have served to regulate cortisol levels, much as mutual grooming does for modern lions and primates. Physical contact and rhythmic grooming strokes release endorphins, lower heart rates, and reduce anxiety. And in a species where cooperation likely played a role in hunting large, dangerous prey, staying calm was as critical as staying strong. Historians still argue whether Smilodons hunted strictly in groups or preferred solitary ambushes, but fossil evidence hints that some coordinated activity likely occurred, especially when bringing down enormous prey like bison, juvenile mammoths, or giant ground sloths. The risks of such hunts were immense. And so, these quiet grooming sessions may have been the emotional warm-up before the storm. You focus now on one of the young subadult males, clearly aware that a hunt may be approaching. His movements are jittery, small tail flicks, quick head turns, but his sister approaches and begins grooming his neck. The repeated strokes visibly calm him. His breathing slows and his muscles relax. The tension melts away, replaced with a shared, silent readiness. Nearby, even the cubs mimic this behavior. Though far too young to participate in hunts, they sense the shift in the group's energy. They huddle close to their mother and she responds with soft licks along their heads and backs, soothing them into drowsy contentment before she departs. You marvel at how deeply ingrained these rituals are. Even now, long extinct, their echoes still resonate through modern big cats. A nervous house cat, licking its paw before exploring an unfamiliar room, shares the same ancient reflex as these giant sabertooths, preparing for life or death chases. The world around them shifts in harmony. The wind carries new scents, faint traces of nearby grazing animals, the earthy musk of fresh droppings, the warm aroma of trampled grass. Prey is close. You can feel the group's attention sharpening, but their movements remain unhurried, grounded by the comforting rhythms of touch and trust. One older female moves to groom the dominant male's shoulders, reaching difficult angles with careful precision. The long strokes of her tongue glide over his dense fur, aligning each hair as she works, steadily from his shoulders down to his powerful haunches. This isn't just stress relief, it's also preparation. Smooth, orderly fur reduces drag, allowing better movement and control during the chase. And there's another more practical benefit to these pre-hunt grooming wound checks. A tiny scratch could become infected. A sore muscle could spell disaster mid-pounce. Grooming allows early detection and gentle attention to these risks. Yet another layer of silent teamwork woven into their survival. The cubs settle deeper into their nap circle as their mother finishes her grooming rounds. They won't join tonight's hunt, but they've already absorbed lessons that will one day shape their own survival. Stay calm. Trust your group. Groom to connect. Groom to prepare. The group grows still for a moment. A breeze rustles the grasses again. Overhead, the moon rises in its full pale glory, casting silvery beams that shimmer across fur and fang alike. This is a world balanced delicately between calm and chaos, where rituals like grooming hold the center. You sense the final exhale of tension release from the group as they rise one by one, their bodies loose, but ready, their fur clean and orderly, their social bonds reaffirmed. The hunt will soon begin, but they enter it as united front, grounded by the gentle touches shared beneath the fading light. The faint sound of distant hooves carries on the wind. The saber-tooths turn as one, slipping like shadows into the tall grass, silent and sleek. But their earlier grooming echoes within them, anchoring their confidence, steadiness, and trust in each other. And once again, you're left struck by how much of survival isn't just strength or teeth, but these quiet, deliberate acts of care that knit ancient lives together. The moonlight guides you now as you continue to shadow the saber-tooth family across the vast open grasslands. Their movements are quiet, precise, and perfectly timed. And though the night hunt unfolds ahead, your attention remains drawn to something far quieter, but just as revealing: the marks left behind. The physical evidence that scientists millions of years later would one day study: fossil clues of grooming toothwear and survival. As the saber-tooths slink through the tall grasses, you imagine the distant future where these very creatures might one day lie, buried, their bones becoming silent storytellers in the hands of paleontologists. And surprisingly, much of what scientists have learned about grooming and daily life comes not from dramatic hunting scenes, but from subtle signs locked inside those ancient remains. Take the teeth, for example. Smilodon's signature weapon, those twin sabers, has revealed volumes. When researchers study fossilized skulls, they don't just look at the overall shape. They analyze minute scratches, wear patterns, and even microscopic grooves along the enamel surface. These tiny etchings tell a detailed story of how the teeth were used and how carefully they were maintained. The fact that many fossilized sabers show surprisingly little damage suggests that these predators were remarkably skilled at protecting their fangs. Mainstream paleontology supports the idea that grooming, both self-care and mutual, played a critical role in keeping these delicate tools sharp, aligned, and free of debris that could otherwise cause microfractures. But the fangs aren't the only place where grooming leaves its traces. You watch now as one adult pauses briefly and scratches behind its ear with a powerful hind leg, dislodging fleas or mites that may have survived earlier grooming sessions. Fossilized limb bones sometimes show faint stress lines or healed microfractures that may well have originated from repetitive grooming motions, scratching awkward angles to reach itchy patches. Historians still debate the fine details of these interpretations. Were these stress patterns from grooming from roughhousing among group members or minor hunting injuries? The fossil record rarely provides clean, simple answers. It offers hints, patterns, probabilities, and plenty of questions. Nearby, you see a juvenile roll onto its back while another subadult inspects its sibling's belly fur with careful, deliberate licks. Fossilized ribs from young Smilodons occasionally show faint abrasions, theorized to result from this sort of early grooming practice. Their still-growing bones absorb much about the world, long before their adult hunting lives began. Even fossilized joints offer clues. Scientists studying ancient saber-tooth shoulder and neck bones have noted highly specialized muscle attachment points, the very adaptations that allowed these animals to hold their heads at awkward angles while grooming or feeding without stressing the fragile sabers. Their skeletons evolved not only for the kill, but for the delicate work that followed it. And then there are the skull fractures, perhaps the most haunting evidence of all. Many adult Smilodon skulls show signs of partially healed trauma. Broken jaws, cracked orbital bones, even damaged teeth that miraculously fused over time. How could a predator survive such devastating injuries? The answer most likely lies in the scenes. You've been witnessing social care group support, and yes, grooming. One injured saber-tooth unable to hunt may still have been groomed, fed, and protected by others until it healed. These acts of care left their mark not only on their companions, but in the very fossils dug up eons later. As you follow the group deeper into the night, you notice how often grooming routines serve as post-hunt therapy as well. After the burst of violence, the coordinated ambush, the sharp sabers slicing through flesh, comes the long careful work of grooming away blood dirt and stress. Fossilized teeth sometimes carry traces of mineralized blood, or prey tissue embedded in hard-to-reach crevices, evidence that grooming was as much about hygiene as it was about comfort. Even modern forensic paleontology has joined the hunt for these clues, using advanced technologies like scanning electron microscopes to read the tiniest scratches like chapters in a well-worn book. Every wear pattern adds another thread to the rich tapestry of saber-tooth life. A life far more nuanced than the popular image of snarling predators locked forever in combat. You pause a moment, letting yourself absorb how much these creatures left behind without ever intending to. The constant grooming, the careful fang management, the bonding rituals, all of it frozen in bone, waiting for human hands to one day brush the dirt away and wonder. The saber-tooths continue ahead of you, now their bodies low to the ground as they approach a small grazing herd. But for you, the hunt is not the focus. Instead, your mind lingers on the echoes these animals left behind, not in the dramatic moments of predation, but in the gentle daily acts that left quiet fingerprints in the fossil record. The night is cool, still, and heavy with ancient memory. And with every rhythmic lick of fur, every careful scrape of tongue against saber, the saber-tooths continue writing their story, one that stretches far beyond their time into hours. The saber-tooths move like silent shadows under the pale moon as the hunt draws to a close. But you remain fixed in the echoes of their world, not only the traces they leave behind in bone, but in the very mystery that still fuels debates among scientists. Today, were these powerful cats true pride animals or something else entirely? You watch as the group reconvenes after the hunt. The kill was successful, though not as dramatic as one might expect. A juvenile bison lies collapsed in the tall grass, its life ended swiftly by a precise, surgically placed bite. The saber-tooths now gather around the carcass, not in a frenzied scramble, but in an almost orderly rotation. The largest male feeds first, his massive sabers, working carefully to slip into soft tissue without striking bone. His movements are efficient, deliberate, and controlled, evidence of a lifetime spent mastering the limitations of his extraordinary teeth. After him, the females step forward, followed by subadults, and finally the cubs, who pick at the softer remains under their mother's watchful gaze. It's here, during feeding, that many clues about their social lives emerge. Mainstream paleontology suggests that such cooperative feeding hints at some form of social hierarchy. Unlike solitary big cats like modern leopards or jaguars, these saber-tooths tolerate each other's presence even at a kill site, an environment that for many predators often becomes a scene of conflict and competition. Historians still argue whether this structured feeding reflects a stable pride system, like that of modern lions, or a looser, more flexible coalition, driven by environmental pressures. After all, the Ice Age world was wildly different from the African savannas we study today. Food could appear in sudden abundance, massive bison herds mammoth calves, or even stranded megafauna, but scarcity always loomed nearby, forcing predators to adapt, both socially and behaviorally. The argument is further complicated by fossil evidence like that from Rancho La Brea, where dozens of Smilodon skeletons have been found together. Were these remains evidence of long-term group living, or were they victims of tar pits, luring hungry individuals toward struggling prey? The question fuels passionate debates at every paleontology conference. But watching them now, you see something that numbers alone cannot explain: the quiet coordination, the mutual grooming even before feeding, the patient sharing afterward. The subadults groom the cubs between bites, mothers clean blood from their offspring's faces, and the dominant male allows the younger members their turn at the carcass without aggression. Even modern lions, despite living in prides, are not always this harmonious at the kill. The sabertooths display a degree of controlled cooperation that suggests social sophistication, not just instinctual feeding, but genuine tolerance nurtured by strong bonds formed during those endless hours of grooming. One female finishes feeding and immediately begins grooming her mate's blood-smeared muscle. The barbed tongue scrapes carefully around the base of his sabers, removing clots and debris that, if left unchecked, could dry and damage the enamel or irritate the gum line. The male closes his eyes and leans into her touch, relaxing completely under the familiar routine. It's a quiet reminder that even after violent hunts, care remains at the center of their lives. Nearby, the cubs gather around one subadult who gently licks their faces clean patiently, removing the crimson stains from their downy fur. The cubs squirm and purr softly, nuzzling into the larger cat's chest, with full bellies and heavy eyelids. These small acts of care aren't just hygiene, they're the glue holding the group together, reinforcing trust after moments of high energy and stress. You marvel again at how these daily rituals mirror aspects of human family life: the importance of comfort after chaos, of gentle reassurance after danger has passed. Perhaps it's not so strange to feel an odd kinship with these ancient predators despite the millions of years that separate your worlds. The hunt now concluded, the sabertooths begin shifting back toward their familiar resting ground. The cool night air carries the fading scent of blood and fresh grass, blending together into something uniquely Ice Age, wild, clean, and harsh but strangely beautiful. As they move, pairs and small groups once again engage in casual grooming, a final reset after the kill. Faces are cleaned, shoulders are licked, burrs are dislodged from thick coats, and parasites displaced from feeding sites are quickly swept away. It's here you realize that, regardless of whether scientists ever fully agree on Smilodon's precise social structure, grooming remains the thread running through every part of their existence. Hunting, feeding, resting, healing, all of it is punctuated by these quiet exchanges of trust and care. Even in the middle of an Ice Age night surrounded by threats and governed by survival, these simple acts of contact carry extraordinary power to calm, to heal, and to bind individuals into something stronger than themselves. The group settles again into their circle, stomachs, full coats, restored bodies pressed together against the growing chill of night. Their world continues turning as it always has, equal parts danger and tenderness, while you sit quietly allowing their rhythms to wrap around you like a warm, ancient blanket. The moon has crossed the sky now, dipping lower as the first faint hints of dawn touch the horizon. You stay close, observing the sabertooth family as they drift into their post-hunt slumber. But beneath this momentary calm lies the deeper story that ultimately defined their fate, the slow, steady fade of the Fang Kings. For countless generations, Smilodon ruled these plains. Their world was one of enormous prey, powerful rivals and rich ecosystem that supported their specialized lifestyle. But now, as you sit here with them, you feel the undercurrent of change. A shift that even their careful grooming and close bonds could not overcome. Climate fluctuations begin altering the landscape. The Ice Age's glaciers retreat, reshaping grasslands into forests, then back again into drier, more fragmented plains. The great herds that once roamed in abundance start to dwindle, their migration patterns disrupted. The bison herds thin. Mammoth calves grow rarer. Even the giant ground sloths, once slow-moving meals, begin vanishing. Mainstream paleontology agrees that prey scarcity played a critical role in Smilodon's decline. Their hyper-specialized hunting techniques designed to take down large-bodied megafauna left them poorly suited for smaller, quicker prey. They were not generalists like wolves or humans who could shift easily between food sources. Their entire existence revolved around ambushes, powerful forelimbs, and those surgically sharp canines, perfect for one type of kill, but increasingly mismatched to a changing world. And yet the Sabertooths carried on adapting as best they could. You watch now as the group grooms after the night's hunt, falling into those same timeless routines. A mother licks her cub's face, cleaning away dried blood. Two subadults sit back to back, grooming each other's shoulders with deliberate, careful strokes. The dominant male grooms a female's neck as she purrs softly beneath him. Even as prey grows scarce, these rituals persist. They offer comfort, maintain hygiene, and strengthen bonds. But grooming cannot solve an empty stomach. Historians still debate how much competition from other predators hastened Smilodon's downfall. Dire wolves, short-faced bears, and early humans all hunted the same prey, and sometimes scavenged each other's kills. Fossil evidence shows occasional puncture marks from predator conflicts. But whether these battles were frequent enough to tip the balance remains an open question. What's more certain is the role of a new, highly adaptable competitor, humans. As Homo sapiens spread into the Americas, they brought something no other predator had: strategy, coordination, and tools that allowed them to target large prey with alarming efficiency. The very animals Smilodon depended upon, mammoths, mastodons, bison, began disappearing in alarming numbers under the combined pressure of climate shifts and human hunting. You watch the Sabertooth family continue their grooming as if unaware of what history will soon write for them. Their world is narrowing, the circle tightening. But their resilience shows in these quiet moments of care. Even as external pressures mount, they cling to the behaviors that have sustained them for millennia. A breeze picks up, carrying the scent of unfamiliar fire smoke from a distant human camp. The Sabertooths pause, nostrils flaring, heads lifting in unison. They sense the intruder's presence, though it's still far away. Unlike wolves or scavengers, humans don't trigger simple predator-prey instincts in these cats. The encounter is unfamiliar, foreign, the start of something entirely new. Paleontologists studying the extinction timeline point to this very intersection, where environmental change, prey, scarcity, and human expansion collided as the critical pressure point that Smilodon could not escape. But sitting here in this fleeting present, none of that has happened yet. The family circle tightens once more as the wind settles. They lie close, fur touching fur, purring softly as they drift back into sleep. The young cubs nestle deeper into their mother's side, While older siblings rest their heads on one another's backs, the dominant male, ever watchful, finally lowers his massive head eyes, closing beneath the weight of exhaustion. Even in decline, their world remains beautiful, rich with connection, order, and simple repeating acts of care. Grooming continues like a soft drumbeat through every change and challenge the timeless heartbeat of their kind. You sit quietly, struck by both the fragility and resilience of life. The saber-tooth's fall was not sudden nor cruel. In a personal sense, it was slow, drawn out, the natural result of forces far beyond the reach of any predator's fang or claw. And yet, they lived fully with each tender lick, every careful grooming stroke, reaffirming their place in this vast, changing world until the world shifted one last time. The sky lightens with the softest shades of pink and gold as dawn pushes night away once more. The saber-tooths breathe in unison, their bodies curled together safe, for now in the fading stillness of their ancient world. And though you know their time is drawing to a close, you remain here bearing witness to what lingers even after extinction, the gentle ghosts of the Pleistocene. You watch as the cub stir, first, stretching their little limbs, blinking against the growing light. Their oversized paws swipe playfully at one another before flopping lazily against their mother's warm side. She responds without opening her eyes, her tongue slipping out for a few automatic grooming strokes across one cub's head. A habit so deeply ingrained it seems to operate even half asleep. Around them the adults rouse, slowly moving with a kind of unhurried grace that only long practice brings. They stretch their powerful forelimbs, shake loose fur, and begin yet another round of grooming. The rasp of barbed tongues slides once again through fur, methodically undoing the tangles that gathered during the night. Each stroke realigns not only fur but relationships. Trust, after all, must be maintained daily. Mainstream paleontology agrees that grooming served countless functions more than hygiene, more than bonding. It was their silent language, their social glue, their medicine. Through the act of licking one another clean, these great predators kept their complex social world intact, constantly adjusting and repairing their invisible bonds. Historians still debate what exactly made Smilodon different from its competitors. Was it their strength, their teeth, their social structures? The fossils offer so many clues, but so few certainties. The picture that emerges is both sharply detailed and full of empty spaces. But what seems undeniable is that these saber-tooths lived intricate layered lives as much defined by cooperation and care as by fang and fury. One older female gently tends to the dominant male, now grooming the fur behind his ears, while he sits still, eyes closed, completely trusting. Around them, the younger subadults pair off, cleaning each other's shoulders, flanks, and faces. Even after the night's hunt and feeding, even in a world growing steadily more precarious, the grooming goes on. You notice how practiced these motions have become. The adults move effortlessly around each other's sabers' heads, tilting, just so to avoid jabbing one another accidentally. The sabers, once viewed by early scientists as awkward or cumbersome, seem almost elegant now, managed with the ease of lifelong familiarity. The wind carries distant sounds, again the low rumble of mammoths on the move, the high chattering of rodents in the grass, even the faint rhythmic tapping of a woodpecker drilling into a hollow tree trunk somewhere far off. Life hums along at every level here, woven together in an ancient symphony. And yet you can sense the quiet ache of what's coming. The world is changing beneath them. The great herds are growing smaller. The prey they've evolved to hunt grows scarce. The climate tilts unpredictably, reshaping ecosystems year by year. And always at the edge of this world, humans. Toolmakers, fire starters. The newcomers who will rewrite the entire balance. Still, none of that matters to the saber-tooths in this moment. For now, all that exists is this tongue upon fur, fur beneath paw breath, warming breath. Each lick, each soft nuzzle, each affectionate swat is a statement of presence. We are still here. We are together. It's easy to romanticize these creatures, to mourn their loss as some great tragedy of extinction. But sitting with them now, you realize they didn't live as victims. They lived as survivors for as long as their word allowed. They played, they hunted, they raised their young, they nursed their wounded. And yes, they groomed each other with extraordinary care. They filled their allotted time on Earth completely. As the sun finally crests the horizon, you see the light catch on the dominant male's sabers once more. For a brief moment they shine like polished ivory blades. But just beneath them, the true heart of Smilodon is the rough, humble tongue that quietly sustained this magnificent predator every single day. The grooming continues, steady, soothing, eternal. The rhythm of their lives, passed down through countless generations, plays its final notes beneath the warming sky. And now, as the sun rises fully over the ancient plains, the saber-tooth family drifts back into restful stillness. You too feel the weight of calm, pressing gently across your mind like a warm blanket, wrapping around your shoulders. The rasp of tongues, the soft breathing, the whispering grasses all slow and soften as time stretches out. The dangers of their world, though ever present, grow distant here. What remains is the soothing repetition of care, the quiet reassurance of familiar touch. Every gentle lick echoes through time, whispering that even in a world ruled by tooth and claw, tenderness found its place. You feel your breath match their slow rhythm now. Inhale and exhale. Each rise and fall of your chest mirrors theirs. The distant calls of Ice Age birds fade softly into the background, like fading echoes on a gentle breeze. There is no urgency here, no danger, only quiet bonds and steady hearts. The saber-tooths remain nestled together, fur to fur, their fangs gleaming, but at rest, their ancient story held gently within the cycle of day and night. And you, a visitor from far ahead in time, remain cradled within that peaceful rhythm for just a while longer. Breathe in again. Feel the safety of this place. Allow the last of today's tension to dissolve into the tall grasses, swaying softly beneath a vast, endless sky. And now, sleep.